Yesterday, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, a Democrat from Minnesota, shared a recording of a horrifying death threat recently left on her voicemail. The shockingly disturbing message comes on the heels of anti-Muslim comments made by some of her Republican colleagues, including Colorado Representative Lauren Boebert, who compared Ms. Omar, Congresswoman Omar, to a bomb-carrying terrorist in a now viral video. As a response, Muslim lawmakers held a news conference on Tuesday to speak out against the blatant Islamophobia. Here's some of what Representative Omar had to say.
The truth is that Islamophobia pervades our culture, our politics, and even policy decisions. Cable news hosts, leading politicians in the Republican Party routinely spout hateful rhetoric about a religion that includes a diverse group, more than 1 billion peaceful worshipers around the world.
The question of why hatred against Islam and Muslims has become so normalized in this country that otherwise holds high respect for religious freedom, ostensibly. It's the subject of a book by my next guest. She has a wonderful new book called The Racial Muslim: When Racism Quashes Religious Freedom. And I'm joined now by its author and Rutgers Law School professor and Chancellor's social justice scholar, Sahar Aziz. Welcome to Black News Tonight. I want to focus largely on your book, but I do want to talk a little bit about these attacks on Representative Omar and the fact that her fellow members of Congress are among those spreading the hate. I mean, I don't want to pretend to be completely shocked, but the sort of just unrepentant nastiness from certain members of Congress and with no rebuke from her Republican peers is somewhat shocking to me. What's your response?
I'm not shocked at all. In fact, that's why I wrote my book, because for the last 20 years, Islamophobia, anti-Muslim racism is completely acceptable. So not only is it pervasive, but it is acceptable. And in fact, I have an entire chapter called Officiating Islamophobia, which cites in detail all of the politicians that ran on an Islamophobic platform as candidates and who then continued to engage in open and overt Islamophobia once they were candidates. So Representative Boebert is just more of the same. And in fact, the polls show, poll after poll after poll, that the farther right you go and the more socially conservative Christian evangelical you go in the political spectrum, the more Islamophobia there is, which of course then contradicts the very notion of religious freedom, which is what also evangelical Christians claim to want to defend in the country. And they claim that they're being attacked themselves that their religious freedom is being attacked. So there is some serious racism and outright hypocrisy going on.
What's at the heart of this really then? I mean, surely Christians don't think that there's going to be some Muslim takeover of American culture, right? Surely they don't think that Ilhan Omar is going to duplicate herself in the Congress. I mean, what is there an actual fear here of Islam? Is it that, or is there some other thing at play?
There's a lot at play, but believe it or not, there is about 20% in that range who truly do believe that, for example, Obama was a secret Muslim, that there is a conspiracy to take over Islam from within through these so-called Sharia laws. And we saw bills being proposed and sometimes even being passed in legislatures across the country. Again, I document all of that in my book. And so there is a very real fear based on stereotypes and racism and Islamophobia and prejudice that there is some kind of conspiracy to take over Islam from within. But there's something else going on as well, because I think that Islamophobia, unfortunately, has also been used to cover up and be a guise against anti-Black racism. And we saw this with Obama, and I think we're also seeing it with Ilhan Omar. We cannot disconnect her Blackness, right, as a woman who is of Somali origin from East Africa, from her identity as a Muslim. And so this intersectionality produces a very vicious form of racism. And again, I think we need to be very cognizant of how these two forms of racism intersect to bring back what we already know exists, which is anti-Black racism, but to bring it back into the open rather than underneath and behind the curtain, underneath the carpet and behind the curtain, but also continuing to perpetuate Islamophobia.
There's another thing here that your book does, which I think is interesting, in that it's not just that there are Black Muslims in the world and that people who have been minoritized and racialized get treated a certain way and it's worse if you're Muslim. That's true. That's all true. We see that in the case of Ilhan Omar. But I want to move beyond that and say, you're also talking about Muslims themselves as being racialized, or Islam itself as being racialized. Can you talk a little bit about what a racial Muslim is?
Yes, I get asked that a lot, is why aren't you just talking about religious bigotry? How is this related to race? So race is a social construction. It's whatever a society decides being Black is or being white is. I always use the example of the one drop rule, that in America, it has been socially constructed that if you have one drop of Black blood, whatever that is, then you're Black, which is why Obama was not white, he was Black. He wasn't biracial, he was Black. And that's part of this social construction of Blackness, at least as it's created in the US. And so the way the racialization works is it takes certain phenotypes, at least traditionally, phenotypes, the way you look, your skin color, your hair texture, your facial features, your origins, and then imputes on you these biological traits. And so if you think of anti-Black racism, the Blackness that is evinced through your phenotype, through your skin color or your hair texture or your facial features, is then imputed on you these traits that you're violent, that you're suspect, that you are an outsider to the society, and that you should be locked up, you should be denied civil rights, you deserve to have inferior education, inferior housing, and so on and so forth. And so with Islam, what's happening is by virtue of you believing in the religion and certain tenets of it, like Ramadan, hijab, which is covering your hair, fasting, going to Hajj, the pilgrimage, any kind of Islamic belief and any kind of Islamic practice is essentially being used as if you have this immutable characteristic that's biological, that now you are disloyal, you're anti-American, you're illiberal, you're dangerous. And that's exactly, if you see how Boebert depicted Ilhan, the jihad squad, her and the other three progressive women of color, no coincidence, and one of whom is also a Muslim, Rashida Tlaib, but also how she said, well, she didn't have a backpack, because just by virtue of her wearing the hijab and being a Muslim, then she is now somehow genetically, inherently dangerous or prone to engaging in political violence. That's racialization.
We live in a country that's deeply anti-Semitic, a world that's deeply anti-Semitic, but it's hard for me to imagine a member of Congress making an anti-Jewish joke of that sort. There are sentiments about Mormons, about Catholics, about all sorts of folk. It's hard for me to imagine comments going uncriticized, unchecked with those particular religious groups. Why are Muslims, before we go, why are Muslims seemingly the only group sort of left out to dry on this issue?
So I dedicate 2 chapters of my book to show the history of anti-Semitism, anti-Catholicism, and anti-Mormonism, to make an important point, which is that religious freedom has always been racially circumscribed. So the religions of those 3 communities was used to race them, to essentially deny them the privileges of whiteness, even though they were legally white. We see the same thing with Middle East and North Africans who are legally white, but they're certainly not socially white. And so in some ways, Muslims sadly are the flavor of the day, meaning that this is an American tradition of using religion to racialize in order to justify oppression, either whether it's from the state or whether it's private acts of discrimination. Now, there's something else going on with Muslims, which is that at least the diasporic immigrant children of immigrant communities from Muslim majority countries continue to be punished collectively and presumed suspect and guilty based on conflicts, political conflicts abroad in the Muslim majority world, Middle East, North Africa, Central Asia. So that is also a huge burden that they have to carry that Catholics, Jews, and Mormons do not have to carry in the present day. And so until we can start seeing Muslims as part of American national identity, not outsiders, not a threat, then we're going to continue to see this Islamophobia very openly, and it will directly undermine and contradict our American values and commitments to religious freedom, which I think harms all Americans.
Professor Aziz, thank you so much for joining me. Everybody, make sure you check out the book. It's called Racial Muslim: When Racism Quashes Religious Freedom. It is a brilliant book. It is an important intervention into the conversation on race, on Islam, on American law. It's called The Racial Muslim: When Racism Quashes Religious Freedom. Check it out anywhere that books are sold, but especially independent bookstores.